Dallas Cowboys fans, welcome into How About Wow. This defensive strategy has been shutting down the Eagles' offense, has a lot of people picking the Cowboys to beat the Eagles in Week 12. Now, by now, everybody knows about the zone defense thing against Jalen Hurts. Cowboys had great success in Week 1, but since then, there has been something else added that stifles the Eagles' offense. It is the Sunday show. We're here to talk about it. Take it away, Jimmy.
The only thing else I got to say is, how about them Cowboys?
Yes, buddy, I'm Gavin Dawson along with New Bear Lesniewski. Hit that like button if you think the Cowboys are going to beat the Eagles. Tell us why you are so confident. I have, maybe 10 reasons or so. New Bear, how you feeling on this week? And you feeling confident in the Cowboys yet?
Dude, I just ate like 5 steak burritos. My wife made the best pineapple salsa of all time. I am protein loaded. I'm gonna have to work out again after we're done.
Okay. All right. Well, that sounds good. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get a workout in, maybe some yoga. I'm up here in Denver at a mile high, and my experience has not been fantastic. I'll tell you a little bit more about that maybe if you want to check in on Twitter at Gavin Dawson. But here's what we got, man. Cowboys ran almost exclusively zone against Jalen Hurts in Week 1. They put up the blueprint for how to frustrate him on the back end. Many teams are copying it with success. The Eagles defense is just bailing them out, so they're 8-2. But they rank 29th in EPA per pass against any too high defense. Okay, then you add to it zone blitzing. They're only getting 6.9 yards an attempt, which is 23rd in the NFL. So the Eagles actually enter this game 16th in scoring at 23.4 points per game, and that's all good. That's on the back end, and we know the Cowboys not only had success with that in Week 1, but had success with it last year with different personnel, and it's amazing. But here's the even bigger thing. The analytics are showing the 5-man defensive line, which the Cowboys are now more equipped to execute than they were before the trade deadline. Taking that extra DB off the field, it has been kryptonite for the Eagles. A quote from an analytics guy inside the league with NJ Advanced Media says it's been fascinating that no one has figured out what to do against the Eagles until Kansas City this season. Says you cannot play nickel against the Eagles. Says, I don't know what Kansas City saw, but ever since that game, only one team has tried a lot of nickel against the Eagles. That was Minnesota, and that's when the Eagles put up a bunch of points and yards. It's not just nickel, but it's the 5-man defensive line. What you do with that extra player, you play with 4 on the back end. You got your 2 linebackers. You got 5 sitting right there, and the only team that didn't try that post-Kansas City is Minnesota. Eagles had their best offensive game of the year against them. So that's it's pretty substantial stuff, isn't it, New Bear?
Well, just real quick as an aside, because I'm literally getting this live, and if I don't talk about it, I'm going to not talk about anything else for the whole show. If we're going to talk about numbers, I played quarterback with a college quarterback who wore number 22. How about the BYU kid wearing 47, whose name is Bear Bachmeier? The Cincinnati defensive coach said he literally wants to set a bear trap for this game tonight. I'm so distracted right now, I can't. But what math numbers, I brought up numbers. The math of it is why you do this. Because when you cover up all 5 guys, you drive the opposing offensive line, as nuts as I am right now, watching a guy who I'm jealous of because his actual name is Bear. Like, when you go 4-3,
it's the perfect segue. I see what you're doing.
When you go 4-3 or 3-4, there is math involved that you learn from Pee Wee on up. All of a sudden, you get a 5-man front, and remember, it's not just always an extra or extra DB that you take off the field. It can be 1 linebacker star. It can be 6-1. It can evolve. Belichick was famous for evolving into that and really confusing Sean McVay with the 6-1, right? So when you start talking about it, it's all math, and everyone thinks it's 7 or 8 men in the box, and that's all you have to worry about because it's how you're blocking it up is determined by the total number, but it's also where they line up. And when you cover up all 5 guys, now each one of those dudes is singled up, particularly in pass pro. And the thing you have to respect about Jalen Hurts is Jalen Hurts does not care. Jalen Hurts beat Kansas City throwing for 101 yards on 22 attempts. He does not. He didn't even throw for 3,000 yards last year. He won the Super Bowl. The only number he cares about is whatever the next ring is. It's the Tom Brady conversation. What's your favorite Super Bowl? The next one. That's how this dude lives, breathes, eats, dreams football. It's winning. That's why he's missed me with the AJ Brown bullshit. Get up, do what you're asked to do. If you get the ball, dunk in the end zone. If you don't, shut the fuck up and play. That's all this guy cares about. So what we're talking about right now is disrupting it enough to the point where you can force them into a 10, a 14, a 17-point number while you go put up a crooked one, because he will literally punt on third down if it means he wins the game.
But what it means to me is gone are the days last year with the Eagles where they had this offense that was dang near unstoppable when it got moving, combined with one of the best defenses. Now you have one of the best defenses and a very average offense, and an offense that might be getting even slower. I think it's slowing down, and now you have some chemistry issues in play. So, I think once they get to the playoffs, it's going to be a team like the Rams. Maybe it's the Lions, but one of these teams is going to be able to trip them up on their path. So I think as Cowboy Nation, you can celebrate this in a couple of ways. Number one, it gives you a better chance to win on Sunday. A lot of people picking the Cowboys to win. Number two, maybe it gives you an outside chance of catching them in the division if this zone plus 5-man defensive line it picks up momentum. But these one-score games are really, really unpredictable. Like Chicago looks like the belle of the ball in the NFC right now. They're leading the league in one-score games. The Eagles aren't far behind. Like, this Eagles team is a lot more vulnerable than their 8-2 record would indicate.
You brought up last time we got in here about talk about numbers. You brought up the math of running backs after 400 plus touch. I think you actually dumbed it down to like 370. He touched the ball like 475 times last year, including the playoffs, right?
Yeah,
and
he's done.
But here's the thing, though. I thought they were kind of, to your point, this offense not being as good. I was going to kind of argue about when the playoffs come, you'll see a different Saquon, because when you went back through it, it was like, okay, maybe 18, maybe 20, 22. And then here's this, when he had the Giants game where he went for like 150 on 14 carries, you were like, oh, he's got that pep in his step back. But since then, is he 22 for 60 and 25 for 75 or something like that? It's pretty close to like 3 yards a carry on the nose the last 2 weeks. And, to your point about the 5-man fronts, right? I feel like it's less about Jalen Hurts and it's more about everyone else. Because if Saquon's frustrated and he starts chirping after AJ comes chirping the whole week and anyone else starts getting in his ear, now it's so dysfunctional that forget punting on third down. How do you get out of each other's way to not lose the game on offense, right? Now Jalen Hurts isn't trying to, mitigate field position. He's only thrown one pick the whole year, right? And not turn the ball over and do all those things. It's I got my backup quarterback in here right now. Thankfully, she's not tall enough to be on screen. The thing that gets really interesting about this is, everybody wants to eat, and they've proven that when you feed them, they can play at not just an all-pro, but potentially an MVP type level. I got the interloper over here. As you unpack this thing around Jalen Hurts and you go, what's one more thing we can give them to think about? The 5-man front on top of the zone, on top of now we're in another 10-7 game in the third quarter. When do you finally get their back to break? And oh, by the way, isn't it a whole lot easier if you're a 30-point per game offense yourself?
Absolutely. And to that point, in week 1, the Cowboys scored 20 points, would have easily been 27 if it wasn't for the CeeDee Lamb drops, if you remember.
They win the game.
Yeah, well, they would at least gone up in the fourth quarter, and we would have seen if they could have gotten a stop. But, you mentioned Saquon Barkley. Before the Lightning delay that night, he was at 7 yards an attempt, and then the Giants game, he was at like 10 yards an attempt. He's had only a few moments like average inconsistent players do. And you're right that it's not about Jalen Hurts, it's about everything else around him. And the offensive line is not the same, and Saquon Barkley is not the same, which put a ton of pressure on him. And I do believe Jalen Hurts is much more talented and much more capable than what he's shown so far. Their record just hasn't put any pressure on him and Kevin Petula to try to do anything else. Like, if they would have started 1-3, I think you would have seen Jalen Hurts with a couple of 300-yard games already and AJ Brown with a couple of 150-yard games already. But they're trusting this boring conservative approach to winning, and it'll work until it doesn't. And I think it'll stop working here before they get to the Super Bowl.
Whenever the rankings come out, I always want to push Hurts way further down for all the things that we're talking about. And then you put on they should have beat the Chiefs. They should have beat he outplayed Patrick Mahomes that day. Jalen Hurts in the Super Bowl has been outstanding. And if he doesn't put that ball on the turf in the fumble in the one against the Chiefs, they win that game. If there is any more time on the clock, or you had the same refs who, refed Drew Brees, New Orleans Saints playoff games, they win the Super Bowl, right? But all kidding aside, he was awesome and MVP, deservedly so, last year. And when you put on the tape of him, the one thing, though, even in those moments, and I've done this, and I think we're going to look forward to doing it again as we get into the playoffs and we start talking about next year doing our own rankings, because we'll be further ahead of the schedule of the calendar. When you watch him play, he is so damn late. That's why the touchdowns that he threw last year were so impressive, because it was on time, in rhythm, deep balls over the top. The first play of the Super Bowl against the Chiefs, and we can bring this up, and you talk about, doing things on Twitter and what have you. He literally, the pre-snap read tells you the dude he throws to is going to be open. Post-snap, it doesn't change. He's still open. Then he rolls out for no reason and puts himself in peril and ends up throwing an awesome laser cannon rocket ball for a first down. But it should have been way easier than that. Jalen Hurts, the main criticism of him that is really real, because I don't think the week-to-week stuff in the regular season is really real, because I don't think he treats it the same. I don't think he cares as much, and he legitimately would punt on third down. The thing that's really real about him is he makes football way harder than it needs to be.
Yeah, because he doesn't want to get hurt again. He was getting all the injuries. The knee was bothering him for 2 years in a row. If he just ran it, he would be unstoppable. But he knows he can't run it for 17 times plus.
Well, Cam Newton is the litmus test for that. He's pocket Cam Newton, right? Yeah. And I do think that he's a very brilliant young man. Love comma Hurts, because he knows, to your point, that if he doesn't have to do something and they can still win, and we can kind of survive, and then when the brightest lights come on, he's proven time and time again, when it's winning time, he's a winner. Going back to Alabama, everyone remembers Tua coming in off the bench and throwing the ball to Devonta Smith. What everyone forgets was when Tua went down, Jalen Hurts didn't run into the portal, and he stayed all season. And when Tua went down, Hurts rescued them in the SEC championship game. Jalen Hurts a winner. Jalen Hurts a program builder. Jalen Hurts did leave and then go to Oklahoma, where he got to show everybody who Jalen Hurts can be in a Lincoln Riley type offense. He did run the ball first, second, and most, right? And he damn near ran his way to the Heisman. And coming into the league, if you remember, like Lamar Jackson, there were a lot of people who were talking about him moving to not quarterback, and him being a guy who maybe wasn't ever going to be. And I think people were surprised Philly took him where they took him. And as soon as he got a chance to take control of this franchise, he did the same thing he's done everywhere he's been, which is put winning above everything, even relationships with his childhood best friend.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of all the Jalen Hurts intangibles. It'll be interesting, like what you're talking about right there, when they get to the playoffs. Will he try to have that 70-yard rushing game and totally flip the script on using his dynamic athleticism to break the back of the opposition? And I'm glad we brought up the running, because that, I thought, was the biggest factor in the week one loss, other than the Lamb drops, was how effective he was running the ball in the first half.
The rush lanes. Sorry to step on you. The rush.
No, you're right, because you had Jalen Fowler jumping inside. You had Donovan Ezeraku just getting his feet wet as a rookie, just melting at the tackle's feet. Now the Cowboys adding Quinnen Williams and having Clark and Osa, and the ability to hopefully shut down that middle by themselves. And you have Jadeveon Clowney now added to the mix, who's a hell of an edge setter, plays with discipline, plays with his hands, plays with power. And he can chase Jalen Hurts down as well. I just think they are much better equipped, and the Eagles are significantly less better equipped now with Lane Johnson out and Cam Jurgens really playing like a shell of himself compared to what he was last year in his first year replacing Jason Kelce.
Yeah, the thing that's really interesting about this is twofold. Is when you talk about five-man front, like you can run a five-man front and you can have five guys up there just for the math of it. But when those three inside guys are Osa, Kenny, and Quinnen, like those aren't just guys. Those are men. Those are grown ass men. And you start talking about being able to push from inside. That's why I brought up the pass rush lanes and I got fired up about it. Is, Fowler can't cheat and get either pushed inside or try to win inside because Hurts loves the bail to his right. And when you think about Easy coming around the edge now and having that dip and rip and beating guys, however far they make him run the hump, he's proven capable and really starting to come into his own, especially among the rookie class. And when you think now about Overshown, and does he get his sea legs under him? And if Hurts is able to break contain, is Agent Zero the guy who can go run his ass down? You didn't trust Kenneth Murray's discipline. You didn't trust Jack Sanborn's speed. Leafau, you don't trust him to be in the right place at the right time. Hurts can manipulate him with his eyes. Now you're going to have, a grown-up with the green dot and Logan Wilson and Agent Zero being able to put on the cape, right? Like some of this stuff changes just based on the dudes whose names you're calling.
Man, the Logan Wilson thing is huge because he is an excellent zone defender in the passing game. And, that's just one more thing to make life significantly more difficult for Jalen Hurts. Okay, so there's quite a few reasons to be confident in Cowboys victory. Like the video if you agree they're going to get the dub. Leave a comment down below if you would like to add something to the equation. We're about halfway through the show here on How About Wow, Dawson and New Bear. And I want to share this tab, and we're going to jump over to some outrageous next-gen stats here, courtesy the next-gen stats folks. And got a couple of good ones in here for you on Cowboys and then one on the Eagles as well. I believe I'm going to find Quinyon Mitchell here if I scroll down. Yes. Okay, we get Quinyon Mitchell. Am I sharing screen effectively yet? Yes, there it is. I got to get you back on stage. There you are, New Bear. Okay, Mitchell has been glued to defenders on downfield throws this season. He has more passes defended on those throws than he has receptions allowed, 10-7. He has forced the highest tight window percentage, 53.1, allowed the fewest yards of separation among all players with at least 20 downfield targets. His teammate Cooper DeJean has allowed the most coverage snaps among corners without allowing a touchdown in coverage. So not going to be easy. Quinyon Mitchell is amazing, but the good news here is Keely Ringo and Adoree Jackson are not good. So I would just, pass to the guy that Quinyon Mitchell is not defending. And I think the really good news here on that is that the Cowboys have made pretty good strides of not locking in on CeeDee Lamb. They're genuinely allowing the defense to tell you, should we be going to Lamb or Pickens, and not trying to get the ball to Lamb more, which I think Dak was in a habit of early in the season.
What Cooper DeJean is a part of that too. What isn't his something like he's got the most coverage snaps without allowing a touchdown while he's the closest defender in coverage or so. So Adoree Jackson, not great. Adoree Jackson still has traits, but here comes Cooper DeJean. We saw how he wrecked the Super Bowl. You're talking about Hurts on that stage. Can't forget how good this guy played. So when you unpack this defense, it's those two guys, right? And then let's talk about our two guys and Pickens and Lamb, right? Because you can't double them both. And this is where you talk about what's the one, the comic book one you like so much, Unstoppable Force, Immovable Object, right? I mean, look, dude, Mike Tomlin wanted Quinyon Mitchell. Quinyon Mitchell, we thought they were going to trade up and bring him to Pittsburgh. Quinyon Mitchell was one of those dudes where, I mean, anybody who was interested in him at all was, what is it going to take to get him? And then he ends up in Philly. Come on. So yeah, he's every bit of the data. You see it in the tape. You see it with your eyes, sniff, smell, sight test, anything you want to put him to. He's one of the very best. And the thing you love about that conversation is that George Pickens is also the best wide receiver in football. You talk about Jetta, you talk about, Higgins and Chase playing off each other in Cincinnati. Shout out what JSN's doing. I think I missed him a couple weeks ago when we went through the Rolodex of wide receiver ones. He's got better numbers than just about anyone, and I'm not going to go through everyone, but when you think about height, weight, speed, route tree, anything that you would ask them to do right now, who would you take over Pickens? Like you can't argue anybody realistically unless you're just literally getting into the counting stats side of it. So this is going to be the week, even more so in my opinion than when CeeDee was out, that we find out who George Pickens really is.
Yeah, I don't think anybody would take Jackson Smith and Jigba objectively over George Pickens right now. Maybe they would if they were just watching SportsCenter and NFL Network and seeing the highlights, but I don't think anybody's better than Pickens right now. Maybe some players are just as good, but the outrageous stat on George was he's destroyed man coverage, leads the NFL with 22 catches, 371 against man, paces the league 3.2 yards per route, 12 per target against man. His 143.3 rating against man defenders is 20 points higher than the next player. But then you add this. He is the only player with 500-plus receiving yards against zone and 300 against man coverage this season. There's not a defense out there that can shut down George Pickens. So it is really exciting. It is really exciting to get strength on strength to this level, not only at the skill positions, but on the interior as well with the Cowboys defensive line. And then you get to Javonte Williams. He has been the
Which is awesome.
Ranks in the top 5 in rushing yards and rushing touchdowns, averaging 6.7 yards per carry in shotgun this season, the third highest in the next gen stats era. I should have listened to you. I mean, you've been talking about Javonte being the guy since we were in Oxnard, and everybody was just thinking, oh, there's not a good runner out here. Is it Miles Sanders? We're waiting for Jaden Blue to get healthy. And all along you were singing Javonte's praises.
Well, I love the kid coming out because he like high school valedictorian and all these other wonderful things that just like Dak, Walter Payton, man of the year, like how
He's
easy to root. What's that?
A 10 out of 10.
Oh yeah. Easy to root for this kid. And then, oh, by the way, he runs so damn hard. He knew who he was. And he was one of those dudes who, Earl Campbell getting the jersey torn off him type stuff. Like not all 230-pound backs want to run like that, especially in today's game. And, he's not a speed guy per se, but he had enough juice, enough wiggle, and he was not afraid. He was a 3-down guy. He would keep your quarterback clean on third down, pass pro, buttery soft hands coming out of the backfield on third down, check down. And then the knee thing was just devastating. And I hated the way it ended for him in Denver because it looked like he might not have anything left. And when we went out to Oxnard and you see him, and, at the time, everyone was talking about Miles Sanders, and we found out how washed Miles Sanders went when Zach Bond ran him down in week 1, right? Yeah. And then you see Jaden Blue and you go, wow. Like there isn't a superlative that you wouldn't say just when you watch that dude run, right? And move. And then we're out there at practice and they're throwing the screens and they're getting involved in these really intricate elements of the offense. And he looked good doing everything. And the thing I said that I wanted to hang my hat on with him as we went through this season was sometimes, people talk about how these injuries take 6 and 9 months to come back from, air quotes, you're medically cleared. If you don't trust what your body is supposed to be, what everyone's telling you that you can do because it used to feel a certain way and it just doesn't yet. When it finally does, and that's what he was really saying in Oxnard, I feel like myself again. And you go, okay, he's trying to talk himself into it. Okay, he got the $3 million contract that should have been a $30 million contract. This might be his last shot. He needs all the help he can get. And then you just see him giving it everything he's got. Again, how do you not root for the kid? And then you put on the John Connor tape. You put on the Arizona tape. We broke that stuff down, the Clayton Adams stuff, and you go, damn, if they can get John Connor 13 yards downfield before he gets touched, what's Javonte Williams going to do when he starts going and seeking content? So then you start getting excited about it. Then he starts doing it, and he's able to stay, relatively healthy, and they're able to stay relatively consistent. And it's just a great story to see right now where now you're wondering, are they going to try to limit and try to sign him and he's the guy going forward? Or do you just wear his ass out because you don't know how much he might have left? This might be all there is. And oh, by the way, this is all you're paying him for.
Well, and of course you mean James Conner, not John Connor, guy that played in your backyard there. So obviously you know him well. You're like a football encyclopedia out there. But I think the other cool thing I would add to that Javonte Williams is the other thing he's talked about is not just being healthy, but he says he now fully understands the concepts. And I think that goes to coaching. I think that maybe goes to struggles his last couple of years in Denver. Like when you're struggling, like doing anything. Maybe it's a video game. You will get on there and watch other people play the video game and talk about the video game, and it's keeping you up late at night. Like, why isn't this working out better for me? And I think through the struggles, he went deep into the knowledge base of what could possibly help him figure it out. And then when he got healthy, when he got a coaching staff that was really obsessed with scouting the opposition and calling the perfect run plays to take advantage of their weaknesses, and all of those things came online for him at the right time. And then, don't forget about the offensive line, which as a whole ranks, I don't know, in the bottom third, maybe just in the middle third, just barely sitting on that edge as a totality. But these guys are athletic, and Tyler Guyton and Terrence Steele, I would not want them trying to pass pro with the game online against really good edge rushers. But in the run game, they're daddy. They're out there hunting. And then you turn Tyler Smith and Tyler Booker and Cooper Beebe and the strength on the inside loose, and it's all come together really well. I hate paying players on sentiment, but Javonte Williams deserves a payday. If you don't plan on him being the bell cow next year, at least have him part of your running back room for 3 years and $9 million. Make sure this man gets paid one way or another, because what he's done for the Cowboys here in 2025, he's earned it. And he's earned the right to show you that he could do this again. And if he does do this again, I mean, I don't know if another team's going to offer him 3 years and $20 million, which is probably what he's owed, but I would want to make sure he's at least got a golden parachute dropping out of the NFL. And I'd like to invest in his future as a good player for at least another season or two.
Well, and the neat thing about it is this is his age 25 season. So you're talking about 26, 27, 28. And, as silly as this might be to say for someone who had such a catastrophic knee injury, he has low tread on the tires. And he missed time, and there's tread that comes from, the scar tissue quite literally. But that's the thing that's going to be really interesting going forward, because if you're ever going to get Jaden Blue to make the leap, he's going to have to get that veteran perspective, because he doesn't look like the kid's going to be able to do it on its own. And that speaks volumes, not just to Blue, but to anyone else that they might go try to hunt as a 4, 5, 6 round steal to be Jaden Blue 2.0 and let them compete for that roster spot, because maybe you find another 4-3-ish guy who isn't quite what Jaden Blue could be, but Jaden Blue might not be able to ever develop into the consistent count on guy that you're hoping he can become. And now you're creating competition everywhere, where you have a guy that is brand bedrock culture king, right, in this program that Shotty's trying to build, where you got to believe that if Javonte Williams were to get a guarantee from a team that he knows he can continue to be successful for time, that he would be rooting for the young guy's success the same way CD wants to root for GP.
Yeah. Like I said, total 10 out of 10, perfect teammate, great character, great athlete. And shoot, I didn't know he was only 25 years old. Up next year on How About Wow, Stephen Jones updated the George Pickens, CeeDee Lamb storyline from Vegas. Missed team bus was the reason Stephen gave. Where do you come out on this? Leave a comment down below. That's quite a bit different than blowing through curfew and showing up at 7 a.m. in the hotel lobby, which I can't rule out that happened either. I think this might be a little bit of cover. I think there might have been multiple violations in Las Vegas, and we're just going to talk about one of them publicly. But if it's just the bus, as long as the player is at the game and nobody had to wait for him, like James Harden holding up a team flight, I'm actually okay with this. I would say bus leaves at this time. If you want to get there a different way, that's fine, as long as you're there at whatever time that we establish as a team. Apparently Shotty's up for doing, everything together as a team, and we're going to be on this bus and we're going to get off this bus, and it's part of football tradition. I get it if you're Shotty, and if Shotty wants it, I want it too. I was just speaking, personally, but I also think part of this is George is just such an independent guy, and we learned more about him this week in a great Players Tribune article. He's different, he's one of one. And even though he's very entertaining and has the great smile and the personality, the ability to make jokes, he is more of an introvert than an extrovert. And if he wants to get to the game a different way, I think I'd be okay with that. What would you say? Is missing the team bus a 1 series suspension worthy violation for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Because the thing that's so difficult about this is at first I was like, what are we talking about? What bus did he miss? Because there's usually most teams have like there's an offense bus, a defense bus, or there's a bus that leaves every hour on the hour, one that leaves early and one that leaves late. Because maybe like Tom Brady or Drew Brees, some super psychopath wants to be there going through multiple versions of pregame, or you need treatment, and guys need to get there early. But then there's always a time like guys got to be here by this is the last bus leaving town. But what you're talking about with Shoddy is the culture thing. And we can't talk about Javonte Williams being a 10 out of 10 no notes and celebrating him and rewarding him with a contract and then not holding dudes accountable who aren't literally on the bus. You want to Uber? Fine, but like there's going to be a fine. And, CeeDee said he wasn't puking in a flower pot or whatever was reported at Red Rocks. And the first thing I want to say is that I'm glad Dallas is spilling the tea, because the thing that drove people nuts in Pittsburgh about George Pickens is everyone heard how much of a quote unquote headache or pain in the ass or locker room cancer, wherever you were on the spectrum he was, but nobody ever knew what actually happened. Like they didn't release details. So if they're saying he missed the bus and that's why his ass was picking splinters out of it for that first series, I like that.
But it's not even one bus. It's not even like a caravan. Sorry to cut you off, but it's not like we're all going to arrive and have this great presentation of here we are as one big.
That's what Shoddy wants.
Buses leaving every hour. What are we doing? I want to take an Uber, man. I want to relax back here with my headphones on. I'm not a big social person, and buses are crowded and annoying. I got people farting behind me.
Shoddy is trying to thread the needle between Saturday and Sunday vibes, man. He's trying to like have this team be different than any other team. If the HBC says everybody rides the bus at this time and your ass isn't on it, you pay a price.
Okay. And maybe a kangaroo court $200 fine would be a good price. But,
sure, but
again,
the first series of the game is that.
I don't think that's all that happened. I think there's more to it. But if that is all that happened, then I'd say, Shoddy, just slow down a little bit here with this guy.
Do you have more on this before I add a quick little aside?
Yeah, I just wanted to say I love this George Pickens Players Tribune article, and I think it further spotlights exactly what I'm talking about here. He's different. He and his family were at Death Valley while his brother was being recruited at LSU. He fell asleep in the stadium. He would wear his shoulder pads and helmet to bed at night. He is different. He is weird. Like you talk about CeeDee and GP being a buddy cop movie. They weren't together in Vegas. GP was off doing his own thing. Like he is not one of the guys. He is the guy that shows up on the joke with everybody, but there's no doubt he is marching to the beat of his own drum. 1,000%.
You've seen the draft day video of him watching himself get drafted, right?
Yes. He's just a nut, and you got to embrace it and love it and let him be him. And you let Manny be Manny with the Boston Red Sox. You say, listen, guys, we got our team, and then there's this dude, and we're going to let this dude be himself because there's nobody in the world like him in every way possible.
Yeah, and let's not get it twisted. This isn't Lawrence Taylor with hookers and blow showing up in the second quarter thinking the game was the next day. And this is missing a bus, this, that, and the other. One of the things that we have to do, I got a 2-part response to this. Okay. This generation of kids, which is, you talk about Javonte's only 25, Pickett's still only 24, right? This kid would be a super senior at some of these schools on Saturday, right?
Yeah.
And so as we're unpacking this thing, we have to acknowledge that this generation is different, to your point about Ubers and things like that. That didn't exist. If you and me missed the bus, we weren't getting to the game. Okay.
There you go. Thank you.
As you go through, my only thing is the team is the team is the team. And the same way that you laud Jalen Hurts because all that matters is winning, stuff like this could potentially be things that get in the way of that. In today's day and age, everybody thinks they're special. Everybody thinks they're George Pickens. Everybody got a participation trophy. Now everybody can look at George Pickens and say that motherfucker's an alien, but everyone thinks in some way, shape, or form they're an alien. Jaden Blue for sure, and that's part of the reason we're having problems. Did we all drop?
We're back.
Consistency.
Last thing I saw was Jaden Blue, and that's why we're having problems with him.
Consistency, accountability. Shoddy is talking through the press about that stuff. He has to do something even though GP is the best receiver in the league. It can't be a Lawrence Taylor show up no matter what because we know you're going to go hunt QBs. Also, I don't think this article comes out today if Vegas didn't happen. I bet they had this planned for much later in the season, and this is the run-up to negotiate, just like Shoddy is talking to his team through the press. This is Mulligetta and Pickens talking about the contract through the media. And yeah. I'm not sitting here saying Mom didn't really edit it, and I'm not saying GP didn't really write it, and I'm not saying everything that in there isn't hard on your string, undeniable alien level stuff. I am saying this is all part of the engagement farm. And I for damn sure believe that the way he's talking about endearing himself to Dallas and the narrative of this thing in its entirety is part of him being unleashed, because everyone in Pittsburgh commenting, or especially the guys you talk about the engagement farm for clicks about what the Pittsburgh offense is missing, none of this stuff happens in Pittsburgh. It is not Fuji apples to Gala apples. It is not even apples to oranges. It is fruit to vegetables. It is a different conversation between Dak Prescott and even Perk Rogers, let alone Dak Prescott and Duck Hodges through Mason Rudolph and everyone else we've seen in a post-Ben's arm fell off world. George Pickens doing what he's doing is because of where he is with an adult in the huddle and adult calling plays and them truly letting him be him. It's awesome that he only got a 1-series suspension.
Yeah, I think you're nailing it, and it was probably well timed by Pickens' camp to come out with a story now post Vegas with a couple of months to go. But I also think it's just good, responsible PR. It's personal branding, and it's letting people know that no matter what you hear, I want to be a Cowboys player, because he had said with us in training camp, the money's going to be the money no matter where you are. I'm not worried about that. I'm just playing well. So maybe this was part of updating that, and maybe starting to put a little pressure on the Cowboys to like, hey, let's get a long-term deal done here, because I'm not going to have it be misconstrued that I'm a mercenary. I think I found my football home, and I want it to be the Dallas Cowboys for the rest of my career, and I love it.
Well, okay. I talked to you a little bit about, the fifth-year option guys. He's not a fifth-year option guy. Remember, he fell to the second round. Yeah. I don't think he wants to get tagged. I think he's willing to do something, as long as it's commensurate and guaranteed. I think he's willing to play this game with Jerry a little bit different than some of the other guys were, and he might actually be doing something like this. If this is truly from him, if I'm going to now go and stop being a cynic and being optimist and buy what you're selling, if he really wrote this and his mom really edited it, this is him telling David Mulligetta through the press, get a bleeping deal done.
Yeah. I think Mulligetta would say, dude, I might be able to get you $42 million a year. I think if they could do 35 or 36, that'd be fine. But I mean, go to 42. The Cowboys do plenty of bad deals with players that don't live up to the bill. The roster's full of them right now. You got one of the best wide receivers in the game. The cap's going up. I would say, Jerry, don't let him off the hook if Mulligetta drives a hard bargain. We're getting short on time here, buddy. Kaiir Elam's no longer a Cowboy.
I'm actually really sad about this, man. I was really rooting for the kid. Talk about rooting for guys.
Yeah.
First round picks that wash out he fell behind in Buffalo, and it was one of those things where he was never going to dig his way out of it. And the change of scenery, particularly with the opportunity, because a lot of times you go to a new place and it's a good fit scheme wise, it's a good fit culture wise, but like there aren't plays. Everything was in front of him here, and for him that it's just, I'm actually sad about this one.
It's unbelievable because the OTAs, the training camp stuff, they were PBUs and interceptions nonstop. And you thought, well, perfect, change of scenery. And then immediately when he stepped in when the regular season started, he just wasn't good. So that's sad. Maybe I'm sure he'll pick up somewhere else. First round picks always do, especially at corner, where the NFL just doesn't have enough good ones. But to me, the story really is about how confident they are in Caleb Carson, Savone Revel, and they probably feel like Diggs is in fact going to come back next week. And they have more than enough good corners now, which is crazy. They have depth. Now they need a shutdown guy, but it also shows that they needed to get Malik Davis out there, the running back. if you're not going to believe in Jaden Blue, Miles
Yeah.
Sanders.
Yeah.
I think Malik Davis can give you the outside runs more than Javonte Williams. Like we just said a bunch of great stuff about Javonte. He's not the fastest guy. He's not the best guy on the outside. I'm excited what Malik Davis can diversify their rushing attack.
Yeah, this is one of those things where the opposite is also true. As sad as it is to see some guy look like, he's going to be a, first round picks might get 9 lives, but you go to two teams. One is a historically winning organization. You can't get on the field. Then you go to a bad organization where you have all the opportunity to make plays. You don't make enough. Like he's kind of failed in both of the ways that you can fail now. So, it's going to be a war of attrition. Like you said, I actually think corner is physically quarterback is the hardest and most important position in all sports. Cornerback's right there because you're literally doing it backwards, right?
Crazy. And you don't come out of the game. They're bringing in new wide receivers and new dudes. And if you're the starting corner, you're staying out there running your freaking ass off and trying to mirror some of the best athletes in the world. Like athletically, it might be the most demanding position in all of sport.
At the same time, though, a guy like Malik Davis, salute, because this is a dude who you thought with the way Jaden Blue runs, the way he looked in camp, the way people were talking about him, this is the opposite of that. This is a guy who maybe is going to be singing for his supper, practice squad to practice squad, call up to call up, new team every year, never actually buy a place. The U-Haul stays packed kind of thing. And you talk about dudes finding homes. I'm going to tell you this, dude, Shoppy, all he cares about is production. So if you plug in, it doesn't matter where you're from, how tall you are, what your 40 time is, you go 6.7 a run out of the shotgun, he's going to find a roster spot for you.
All right. Great stuff tonight, buddy. Very fired up. Cowboys-Eagles Sunday afternoon. We'll be back post-game to evaluate it, give some takes, and start looking forward to week 13 before you know it. Hopefully we're looking forward to a possible Cowboys victory against the Chiefs. And if they beat the Eagles, I think a lot of people are going to pick that as well. For New Bear, I'm Dawson. Till next time, how about wow?